Somewhere inside your body, a clock has been counting down since sunrise. It doesn't care about your deadlines. It doesn't know what time zone you're in. And it has absolutely no idea what electricity is. Tonight, long after the sun disappears, millions of people will keep working, scrolling, watching videos, and sitting beneath bright artificial lights. It feels completely normal. But for almost every human who ever lived, night was an entirely different world. Not because they were asleep, because they became different people after dark. For more than 300,000 years, every one of your ancestors spent nearly half their lives in a darkness most of us will never experience. There were no streetlights, no glowing windows, no phone screens. On a moonless night, the only light came from the stars above and the fire they fought to keep alive. So what actually happened during all those hours? The answer reshapes the way we think about sleep, fear, storytelling, and even the human mind itself. Before humans mastered fire, darkness belonged to the predators. Our ancestors were not the kings of the night. They were among its easiest targets. Compared to cats, wolves, or hyenas, human night vision is remarkably poor. We struggle to detect movement in dim light, and our sense of smell offers little warning when danger is nearby. Once the sun disappeared, every sound outside the shelter became a possible threat. Imagine hearing footsteps in complete darkness without knowing whether they belonged to another person or something hunting you. For thousands of generations, that uncertainty was simply part of being human. Then everything changed. At some point, our ancestors learned not just to find fire, but to control it. A small circle of flames created something nature had never offered before, the place where humans could remain awake after sunset. The fire gave warmth. It scared away many predators. It made cooked food possible. But perhaps its greatest gift was something far less obvious. It created time. For the first time, the human day no longer ended when the sun disappeared. Instead of climbing into safety and waiting for morning, people gathered together beneath flickering light. And when survival tasks were finally over, something unexpected began to happen. The conversations changed. During daylight, people talked about food, water, tools, and danger. At night, they talked about ideas. They remembered ancestors. They imagined spirits. They explained the stars. They laughed. They invented heroes who never existed and monsters no one had ever seen. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer societies have found the same pattern. Daytime conversations are dominated by practical information. Nighttime conversations become stories, myths, jokes, and shared memories. That may sound insignificant, but stories allow knowledge to survive the people who discovered it. A hunting lesson dies with the hunter unless someone remembers it. A story can outlive an entire civilization. Some researchers believe the campfire became humanity's very first classroom. Not because anyone planned it, because darkness gave people enough quiet to think beyond tomorrow. But the fire changed something else that most of us have completely forgotten: the way humans slept. Today, we think of a perfect night's sleep as one uninterrupted block lasting 7 or 8 hours. Your ancestors probably never did that. Historical records from Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Asia describe something modern people almost never experience. People spoke naturally about their first sleep and their second sleep. They would fall asleep shortly after nightfall, wake quietly for an hour or two around the middle of the night, and then drift naturally into another period of sleep until sunrise. Nobody considered this unusual. It was simply how nights worked. During that quiet interval, people prayed. They reflected on dreams. Some visited neighbors. Others simply sat beside fading embers while the rest of the world remained silent. For centuries, historians assumed these references meant something else. The idea seemed too strange. Surely humans had always slept the way we do now. Then modern science asked an unexpected question. What happens if you remove artificial light completely? In the early 1990s, psychiatrist Thomas Ware placed volunteers on a schedule that closely resembled the natural length of prehistoric nights. Within weeks, nearly every participant settled into the same forgotten rhythm. They slept, they woke peacefully for a while, then they slept again. No alarms, no instructions. Their bodies simply remembered. Even more surprising was how the volunteers described that period of wakefulness. They didn't feel anxious. They didn't feel restless. Many described feeling calm, reflective, almost meditative, as though their minds had entered a state somewhere between dreaming and waking. It raises an uncomfortable possibility. What if waking briefly during the night isn't always a malfunction? What if, under the right conditions, it is something ancient trying to return? Of course, the world around us changed. Cities grew brighter, candles became cheaper, gas lamps filled the streets. Then electric lighting transformed the night into something that barely resembled the darkness humans had evolved within. Today, many people spend hours under bright indoor lighting after sunset. Blue light from phones, televisions, and computer screens tells the brain that daylight is still outside. Melatonin arrives later. Sleep shifts later. The ancient clock inside the body becomes confused. Researchers have shown that spending just a few nights outdoors without artificial light can dramatically shift the body's internal rhythm towards sunset. The program is still there. It has simply been interrupted. Yet perhaps the greatest thing we lost wasn't better sleep, it was darkness itself. For almost all of human history, the Milky Way stretched clearly across the night sky. Children learned the stars before they learned written words. The changing moon measured time. Constellations guided journeys across continents. Night was not empty. It was filled with stories awaiting to be remembered. Today, millions of people live beneath skies so bright that they have never seen the galaxy their ancestors looked at every night of their lives. Without realizing it, we traded one of humanity's oldest experiences for convenience. That doesn't mean electricity was a mistake. It transformed medicine, education, safety, and nearly every part of modern civilization. But every invention changes us in return. The light switch did more than brighten our homes. It quietly rewrote 1/3 of human existence. And somewhere inside your brain, there is still a version of you waiting for darkness. A version that expects stars instead of streetlights, silence instead of notifications, a circle of fire instead of a glowing screen. The ancient night never truly disappeared. It is still written into your biology. We've simply become very good at pretending the sun never sets. If you enjoy uncovering the ancient inheritances hidden in everyday life, because the past isn't behind you, it's still living inside you.